My name is Ricardo and this is Josh.
El día de hoy vamos a estar ofreciendo interpretaciones y solamente vamos a estar ofreciendo interpretación y solo queríamos mencionar unas cosas antes de empezar.
Tonight we're going to be offering interpretation, and I just wanted to say a few things before starting.
Por favor, si están hablando, intenten de no hablar muy rápido porque es difícil para el intérprete. Si están hablando muy rápido, vamos a hacer esta señal que significa que hablen más despacio.
Please just be aware that you don't speak too quickly. We're going to offer a signal. We're going to do this signal, and if you see us do that signal, we're asking you to slow down.
También, por favor, si están hablando muy despacio, muy bajito, es difícil para que el intérprete escuche, entonces vamos a hacer esta señal para pedirles que por favor hablen más fuerte.
As well, if you're speaking too low, we're also going to ask you to speak up louder, and in order to do that, we're going to do this signal, and that's asking you to speak louder.
Por favor, intenten de no hablar uno encima del otro, porque como intérpretes no queremos tener que darle privilegio a una voz por encima de la otra.
We also ask that you speak one at a time, because as interpreters, we don't want to have to privilege one voice over another.
Y una cosa más, por favor, si su equipo tiene que estar en el canal número 2, y si no está funcionando, por favor levanten la mano y uno de nosotros les va a asistir.
So those of you who have equipment, the equipment should be in channel number 2, and if it isn't working for some reason, please raise your hand and someone will come to assist you.
Es todo, muchas gracias.
That's it, thank you very much.
Thank you, and welcome to our second City Council Candidates Forum. My name is Lori Britt. I'll be one of the co-moderators this evening, along with Tim Rupke from the Fairfield Center. We will be asking some questions of the candidates. This is a continuation of City Council Candidate Forum 1, which is now available on YouTube. I figured that out in the past 2 weeks, how to do that. And you can search for the hashtag City Council Candidates Harrisonburg 2014. Any of those terms should get you to the video, or it's also linked on the website that advertises this as well. We'll be filming this one tonight as well. So I'd like to introduce our candidates quickly. Tim's standing in the way. Alan Harden, Dee Dee Dawson, Helen Chabot, Chris Jones, Ted Bird, and Joshua Huffman. I knew it was an H, it just went out of my head. I'm sorry, Joshua. So we'll be starting this evening. The flow of the evening will be that open with some opening 30-second questions, so you get to hear a lot from the candidates right away. And then we'll be transitioning into alternating some questions from some of the sponsoring partners, the Shenandoah Valley Bike Coalition, the North End Greenway, the Downtown Dining Alliance, Better Together, Rockingham Green Network, and we also are joined by supporting partners tonight, the Student Government Association of JMU and the Chamber of Commerce, who also help support tonight's event by getting the word out and submitting some questions as well. We'll also be taking questions from the floor, so if you have a question once we get to that point, either raise your hand, or if you've submitted one on paper, those are going to be submitted to us as well. Okay? So we will get started this evening.
Some of you are here for the first candidate forum and will recognize tonight's format. It's changed a little bit. Part of the sponsors' ideas here were to try to get more questions from the floor and from you all. So there will not be opening comments from the candidates tonight. We will give them opportunity to have some closing comments around a particular idea, but we're going to jump right into some questions. Questions will vary in terms of how much time candidates have to respond, between 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and 90 seconds. And Lori Britt and I, my name is Tim Rupke, and I'm with the Fairfield Center. We will be facilitating, moderating the evening, and trying to do our best to balance questions and topics, and from people that may want to use the microphone and the ones that are in writing. And so we're asking for your permission to do that, and that you will agree to abide by those, by giving us that power, that we're going to keep track of time and try to keep the flow going, and And so do we have your permission to function in that way? If not, then we're going to escort you out now. Okay. So the order was determined by a draw, and so that's why the candidates are seated in this way. And it's a pretty simple format. We're just going to ask the question, they're going to go down the line, and then we'll alternate who begins. Pretty simple. So I think that covers our format, and I think we can get started with our first 30-second question. What is one significant challenge facing Harrisonburg?
So that's a question for me first up. I want to say that one significant challenge to Harrisonburg is underemployment. It's our economic situation. The city of Harrisonburg is a city where we have a number of families that are struggling in the school system. We have a high unemployment rate at 6.8%. We have a high poverty rate, one of the highest in the state, at 35%. And I think we have a low vision and a drive towards working to address some of these challenges. And these challenges of underemployment. 30 seconds too.
I think one of the significant challenges in Harrisonburg is the quickly growing school system that we have. We know that our school division grows between 2 and 4% every single year, and we're building buildings as quickly as we can, but we also need to make sure that we're not only growing buildings, but that we're also compensating teachers and staff with benefits and programs in place to make sure that all of our students are going to be productive citizens in Harrisonburg. So I do think a significant challenge is building those schools and making sure that we're keeping up with the quickly growing city population that we have.
I think we're seeing a rapidly increasing population, not just in our school system, but also with the number of retirees across the state and beyond that are moving here. I think City Council needs to take a hard look at the big picture, especially when it comes to infrastructure planning, and make sure the projects we're investing money in will be good for the next 10, 20 years and beyond.
One significant challenge facing Harrisonburg right now is that growth of our school system, as Dee Dee mentioned, but I take a different approach. We'd like to make sure that we're investing in our pre-K programs and that we're investing in after school. We need to support the work and the dedication that the teachers are doing between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. We need to supplement that in homes that don't have tutoring opportunities, in homes that don't have proactive parents that are able to support, and quite honestly, which matches that unemployment, parents that don't have the time.
For me, the significant challenge facing Harrisonburg is the allocation of scarce tax resources for our municipal services, our municipal infrastructure, our educational services, and our educational infrastructure. Basically, that is the role of the city council person in directing these resources and trying to make the best decisions with limited tax dollars. And that's why we do what we do.
Well, I was originally going to say growth because, of course, Harrisonburg is on track to be the fastest growing city in the state, which is certainly important, and we have to manage that. Although, given some events that I heard about today, I'd say we also need to worry about jobs. There's a fellow in Front Royal, a longtime political activist, who sent a very impassioned email just a few weeks ago, trying to find a job, any job that he could, and unfortunately, I just found out he took his own life. That's terrible.
Thank you. The second question, if you could ask one question of all residents of Harrisonburg, what would it be? Start with Helen.
With Alan or Dee? I think if I could ask you all one question, I would want to ask you, what are you going to do, or what do you want to do to make Harrisonburg a better place? I would love to hear from you, and I would love to challenge you to do what you can to make Harrisonburg a place that you like to live, work, play, and work. I think I said work twice, but you know what I meant. Thank you.
I'd like to ask, what would it take to get you more involved in the decision-making processes at City Council? We have a lot of public hearings that are poorly attended. Most of them go by without any public comment, either at council meetings or just emails to staff beforehand. I'd like to see a wider range of voices represented at council.
I know that each of you are very busy working and parenting and going to school, some of you, and so I know it's hard for you to make those meetings from time to time. So I would ask you, if you had a magic wand and you could have more time, you could have more opportunity, what would that be? What would that thing fulfill? And how can I serve you if elected? And how can we make that vision come true for each and every one of you? I know that we all have our own individual visions of Harrisonburg, and I would love to learn those and dream big so we can put those things together and come up with realistic plans to actually fulfill those dreams and opportunities.
For me, bear with me, make sure I have my grammar correct. What service can the city do better? Colon. What service should the city not be doing that we are? Colon. And what should we be doing that we aren't? Colon. And how do you suggest we pay for it? Question mark.
Well, as someone who's lived in Harrisonburg almost his entire life, of course, there's been a lot of changes to our community. And what I've been asking folks as I go knock on their doors is, what sort of city do you want to see Harrisonburg be? Because, Harrisonburg has changed a lot, some for the good, some for the bad. So, that's something I'd like for you all to ponder. What sort of city would you like?
I want to ask everybody what issues are important to them. What drives them? What is the idea that is of interest for you for the city? People are going to talk about strong schools and an effective government. People are going to talk about an efficient government. People are going to talk about a safe town to live in, safe, bikeable, walkable neighborhoods and community. And all of those items are part of what brings us together as Harrisonburg. It's part of what makes us the city. And the follow-up question is, what do you do? What can we do together to have a better place to live in?
Our next question is going to be a 60-second question. We've actually combined 2 of the 30 seconds that we sent you. Here's the question. We made a decision in the past not to require all new construction projects to build sidewalks. And we're regretting that decision today as we retrofit areas likely at a higher cost than would have been required originally. In that same vein, what are we not investing in now that would pay off? What are we investing in now that would pay off, or we expect to pay off? And what things are we not doing today that we might regret in the future? We'll start with Helen.
I think a lot of our problems and our regrets have to do with the kind of push-it-through mentality that we have for major projects in the city right now. I think the new municipal building and the hotel conference center that City Council passed funding for yesterday are good examples of projects like that deserve more public scrutiny. I don't think we should make the same mistake with the upcoming jail expansion.
Yes, I can repeat the question. So again, the sidewalks. We're retrofitting now at a higher cost. So what are we investing in now that will pay off long term? And what things are we not doing today that we might regret in the future?
Yeah, good twist. I like that. Well, currently, we're looking to invest, I believe, 20 million city dollars and 20 million county dollars into a new prison expansion. I think that not fighting the jail as one big collective unit would be our mistake. I believe that we need to fight this together and stand together as a united Harrisonburg and quite honestly as a united Rockingham County. I think that right now those funds that are allocated to build that project need to be reorganized, rededicated to alternative sentencing. Look at ways and means in which we can help those individuals that are facing mental illness and mental challenges that are incarcerated. And quite honestly, just finding alternative ways and new ways to handle nonviolent criminals. There are many individuals that need help and need services that have been wrongly incarcerated or too quickly tried. And so I believe that that would be the investment that I would change.
Currently, what we're not doing that we should be doing, we may have to redo in 20 years, would be allowing certain commercial and residential developments in certain parts of the city to be done without a traffic impact analysis. And in addition, as well as allowing them to be cited without identifying and securing the necessary parking. What investments that we're doing now that will have benefits in the future is the current investment that we make in the Harrisonburg City School System. Those kids are our future for this, and that's, I'm glad to have supported it for the last 8 years.
You know, when I go door to door, I feel sort of like I'm in a Shel Silverstein book, where the sidewalk ends. Because I tell you, there are a lot of sidewalks that just sort of go nowhere in this city. I mean, I'd say probably the most egregious is the one on Reservoir, when coming over from one side from Walmart. I mean, you're walking on that and all of a sudden you're in traffic. It's like, well, that's not so good. But concerning things that I think we will regret in the future, unfortunately, I'd say that the hotel and conference center, which passed last night, is probably a regret. I actually want to take a moment to thank Helen for speaking about that, and also the mayor. We were the only three that actually spoke on that issue. And I know a majority of the people who came out had an opinion that seemed to be different than ours, but I still think it was an important issue, and I'm glad that folks will stand up for principle, even when it may not necessarily be the most popular thing.
I'm going to start with the negative and then get into the positive, because I feel that what we have in Harrisonburg that's working great is our sense of community, our sense of working together to resolve longstanding goals, longstanding issues. What doesn't work is the jail process. It's not transparent. It's something that everybody recognizes is a failure in cost and in process. And we're going to be set as a city, setting ourselves up for lawsuits and failure with the process that's at hand. I think we really need to change that. We need to have a more collaborative process. We need to be working towards real solutions. And I'm setting aside my time to be sure that we have that happening. So this weekend, we've got a big event at Sims on that subject on Saturday. Another issue is voter registration. I think that we should be leading. We should be collaborating with JMU. We should not be preventing those students from voting. I think that's very unfortunate. And one thing that we can succeed and learn from is Harrisonburg Downtown Renaissance, something that we have successfully funded, something that we've worked together as a community. We've leveraged public and private investments for our future, and that's opportunities for events, engagement, and revenue and success for the city. And I support the conference center.
I think Harrisonburg has done a great job investing in infrastructure, bike trails, and public utilities throughout the entire city. Of course, the city schools comprise 22% of the city budget, and so we know that we're investing well into our schools, and I think we need to continue that. I will tell you the one thing that I think that hasn't worked well, and that's because I have a neighbor who has some rural land here in Harrisonburg. And recently, the developer who developed property near his was not held to the standard to make sure that runoff did not impact his land. So I really think that we need to look closely at policies, zoning ordinances, and to make sure that we're being good stewards and good neighbors to everyone who lives downstream, and that anyone who builds a house or remodels a house, that they're also held to those same standards. That, again, good neighbors and good stewards are being practiced throughout the entire process in the city.
So several of you mentioned the jail, and we had some questions come in at the last one that we didn't have time for. And is Sam Nichols here? Sam, do you want to ask your question? I have it printed out in case you forgot what your question was.
Good evening. I'm part of a citizens group that's been working for 2 years with the jail to try to improve mental health services with little success. Arlington Jail has 6 full-time mental health workers. Another nearby municipality, county area, has 2 full-time workers. Our jail has a nurse practitioner who works 3 hours a week. We also use a restraint chair and padded isolation room, while many localities and many other countries do not. The question from our group is in 3 parts. First, what's your experience personally with mental illness that would make you a passionate advocate for improved mental health services? Secondly, would you participate in a community visioning process to help us set goals for improved mental health services in our area? And third, would you be willing to increase taxes to bring our services into line with best practices for mental health in jails?
So we'll give you 60 seconds to answer that question, and I believe we're starting with Chris.
Thank you for your question. I really appreciate that. Family. I've had family members that have suffered from mental illness and that still suffer from mental illness. And so therefore, I am compassionate towards that. Being compassionate is seeing a situation, seeing a lack, caring about that, but then moving beyond that care and actually doing something for it. And I agree with you. It sounded like in your question you were saying that we do need more staffing. I agree with that. I recognize that void is there. But I agree that we should instantly increase taxes to take care of that void. I can't intelligently speak to that right now. I do think that we should find revenue to make sure that we can have that type of staffing. So if there are things that we can shift, things that we can shave, I would like to look at that opportunity first. And then if we need to go a step further to increase, that may be something that the council, once I'm elected, that I would push for. But I would first want to look for that opportunity. And yes, I would love to participate in any type of group brainstorming and group activity. And I will stop.
Experience with mental illness, again, I'm like Chris. Family members have suffered, are currently suffering. So I'm aware of the issue. Locally, mental health services are provided by a community service board, which is jointly funded by both the city and county. And I think we have one of the better boards in the state of Virginia in the administration of services to that population. Is there enough money? Probably not. There never is. And in my earlier remarks is part of our job is scarce tax revenues to the many services that we have, municipal as well as infrastructure. So to that question, do I feel our CSP is quite efficient? Absolutely. When it comes to taxes, again, we can do what you want. The question is how much you want to pay for it. Thank you.
Yes, I have had personal experience with mental illness, Parkinson's and Alzheimer's do run in my family. And of course, you know, when you have a loved one who can't even remember your name, that's a very tough thing to go through. Earlier today, I had the opportunity to meet with the head of the Kingsway Prison Ministry, and she, of course, echoed many of the same concerns that you brought up. And, you know, these are things that, I have to confess, I wasn't all that aware of, but things that we ought to look into. As for the issue of taxes, I mean, I certainly am not someone who would run to and let's, you know, raise taxes any chance we get. I know I've spoke against the tax increase this most recent time. And I try to see, you know, what we could do more efficiently with the resources that we have. You know, maybe there's some things we can cut to allow for more funding there. Thank you.
The questions about experience with mental health challenges and about opportunities forward in particular with our justice system. I have had personal experiences with my family, but I've also had professional experiences serving as Assistant Secretary of Commerce and Trade for Virginia, dealing with mental health facilities that are set up to engage people back in the workforce. These are programs that are the opportunity. Talking about the community involvement, absolutely. I think that's a critical aspect, and this is a great opportunity to plug the event that I'm hosting on Saturday at 3:30 at Sims School, looking at trying to put forward positive solutions to these real challenges, and mental health is an enormous piece of this. And the final piece, and then absolutely with regard to resources, we're talking about enormous investment in community resources, in bonding authority, and in capital investment for a jail, followed by the continued upkeep and costs. We're talking about resources. We're talking about a lot of resources. We're talking about $45 million. So yes, we're committed to, we need to commit to better use of those resources.
I think everyone up here has some experience with mental illness, either in their family, with coworkers, or friends, and I'm no exception to that. I think I have the compassion to be able to address this and to be able to work with different groups to come up with solutions. One of those things that I think about is the city of Harrisonburg is lucky to have very many resources to address things that are happening in prisons. But I also, not only do I think that we need to address the issue once people are incarcerated, but we need to look further upstream, and we need to look at these resources before a person is incarcerated to see what we can do before they get into that situation and need the resources once they're in a jail. So again, I am all open for brainstorming, working with other organizations to identify those resources that we have in place in Harrisonburg to help people before they commit and before they're incarcerated.
Something that hasn't been mentioned but is very important here in our community is mental illness on college campuses. I think JMU has dealt with this issue a lot more effectively than the city of Harrisonburg, particularly in the jail. One issue with our jail right now is that it's a maximum security facility, and most of the people in there are not maximum security type offenders. By converting the jail to a minimum or medium security facility, which we can't do as it is right now, we could save a lot of money that could go towards having mental health professionals in the jail.
Okay, next question for Ted to begin. Given the importance of small businesses and startup businesses to Harrisonburg's economy, even with national chains continuing to look at our community, do you have any thoughts or plans for supporting small business and new business development? And 60 seconds.
60 seconds. Absolutely. Harrisonburg started a small business development loan program. We partnered with the state, took their money, leveraged it with ours, and currently we added more to it this current year for startups and entrepreneurial companies in downtown Harrisonburg. I think we loaned out the first $150,000, and currently, if I read the financial statements correctly today, I think we're in addition have another $70,000 loaned out this year. So Harrisonburg is partnering with HDR as well as the Small Business Development Center and JMU Center for Entrepreneurial Studies. So we're there, we've been doing it, and we're hoping that we can, how should I say it, not mentor, but allow these companies to grow, and we'll have success.
Well, absolutely. You know, we certainly do need to support our small businesses. I know, any chance I get, I try to shop at one of our small businesses here in Harrisonburg. But I think the best way to both support our small businesses and to keep them here and to keep more, and to allow for more is to, continue to keep our tax rate as low as possible. I mean, if we make taxes too high, then people will just simply go elsewhere. And along that same line, City Council and the city government cannot be in the business of picking winners and losers. And I sort of think that's what was done last night. I don't think it was fair to the hotel owners here in the city. I think that's important. Like we're on the verge of losing Barnes & Noble, which is a great tragedy in my opinion. I love it. Love the store, but I don't think the city government, the proper solution is to get the city government directly involved. That's not the purpose of the government.
With regards to small businesses, that's very important to me, and business growth, business opportunity. When I was Assistant Secretary of Commerce and Trade, I worked to build the Business One Stop, a statewide program to reduce government paperwork, to reduce the paperwork that businesses had to deal with by making them electronic and available online, and it's a successful system. It's investments like that, government in improving our systems, that leads us to being the best state for business 4 years in a row, something I celebrate. I commit to work with businesses on connecting with markets, listening to people, partnering with people, working together. JMU, the state of Virginia, the county, these are all our potential partners in advancing our local economy. But we also have to deal with workforce and education investments that get all the way down to pre-K and after-school programs. I think I've got some unique abilities to communicate also at the state level. I'm on several boards with the Secretary of Commerce and Trade. I think that if there's ideas statewide, we can implement them here in Harrisonburg for success.
I have the advantage of working for a small business. The business I work for has been in business for 50 years here in Harrisonburg. And I do think that a lot of times small businesses that come to Harrisonburg are encumbered with the many processes and timelines and formats that need to be followed in order to get that business started. So I think one of the things that I can help do on City Council is to look at those processes, to look at the permitting, to look at the policies and the ordinances in place that are currently there, and help develop maybe some kind of checklist or frequently asked questions to help people in a small business want to get started. Of course, like Ted and Joshua also said, there's resources in Harrisonburg that are available to anyone who wants to start a small business, and I would certainly encourage it. It is fulfilling, and I enjoy it.
I think the key to helping small businesses here in Harrisonburg is low taxes and flexible, easy to understand zoning. We want to make it as easy as possible for businesses to set up shop and then stay in business here in our city. I think we do a good job of that already, as evidenced by our thriving downtown. Businesses come in and some of them instantly become staples for us. I don't know what I lived for before wings at Village X. I'd support cutting the meals and lodging taxes back to the level we had 3 years ago to help out these businesses.
Three things I want to touch on: jobs and wages, public benefits and costs, and environmental sustainability. In regards to jobs and wages, locally owned businesses, they're going to create more jobs in certain sectors and better wages and better benefits than some of our traditional chains will. In regards to public benefits and costs, local stores and town centers and setups like an HDR, they're going to require comparatively little infrastructure and make more use of efficient public services. It's going to be smart growth and smart development, refurbing and reusing resources that are already here, as compared to a big box retailer, such as a Barnes & Noble, for example, and strip malls. And in regards to environmental sustainability, the local stores help to sustain vibrant, compact, walkable town centers, which in turn are essential to reducing sprawl, reducing automobile use, habitat loss, air, water quality. And so I'm pro-local business. I shop and eat at all of them downtown. That's why the school doesn't fit me. That's a whole other subject.
Our next question has been asked by someone who turned it in on a card, and this will be a 60-second question. We'll start with Joshua. What life experience led you to join or not join the political party you align with? And do you think it makes a difference for city government?
Well, that's a very good question. As many folks may know, I first got interested in politics at the age of 14. At the age of 15, I was ready and raring to go with the Republican Party. And, had the opportunity to work for them back in 2006, which was a very unique experience. But, of course, earlier this year, due to some, I guess you'd call them philosophical disagreements, I am no longer a member of the Republican Party. Actually, was expelled from the Harrisonburg Republican Party. Which to some people is an asset, I suppose. Yeah, so of course I am the only independent actually running in this race. The nice thing is, by being an independent, I don't feel any, I get to talk to everybody. I get to talk to Republicans, I get to talk to Democrats, I get to talk to Libertarians, and people who aren't affiliated with any party, which I think is fantastic. And it expands dialogue, which, I think ought to be one of the keys of what we're doing here. Yeah.
Joshua raised a great point, and I think he's got a great opportunity here, not being affiliated with the party. I'm affiliated with the Democratic Party. I got into this as a result of being a scientist, going through school as a geologist and environmentalist, somebody who's concerned about the future of our world and the current positioning of our world. And I actually had some very serious and troubling self-growth challenges with George Bush as a president. He inspired me to be incredibly engaged in politics. I spent a lot of time trying to unseat him in 2004, and then I ended up finding my way to Tim Kaine, finding a very positive vision in a Democratic leader. Tim Kaine, working towards education, working for an education investment, working to preserve our green spaces, working for healthier communities, working for real solutions to problems, not lip service. And I found that to be of great value. So I'm very proud to be here today, and as part of this dialogue. It's very important.
I am affiliated with the Republican Party, and I think it has to do with my finance background, most importantly. I'm a fiscal conservative. Just ask my husband. I track where he is online every day by logging in to see where the debit card is being used. And I often ask him, where is the debit card being used, and what did you purchase over in Charlottesville at Trader Joe's? So he needs to spend locally, is what I tell him. I also believe in limited government. However, I can tell you that walking around Harrisonburg, every door that I knock on, every single person, whether they have a Democratic sign in their yard, a Republican sign in their yard, a Libertarian or an Independent sign in their yard, all of these folks have been great to talk with. No one has been rude or has cut me off. So I truly believe that party really does not play a role in local politics. We're all one Harrisonburg, and we're all up here to serve Harrisonburg in the best way that we can.
I'm going to be honest with you. I first got involved in the Libertarian Party because my first week at JMU, they were the club that had the pizza. But then I found out through going to those meetings that there was a third choice besides the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. There was a choice of a party that was fiscally conservative but more socially tolerant, and I think a lot of residents in Harrisonburg find that message very resonant. I don't think political party is that important in a local election. It's more what you want to do. But I will say that my libertarian background would encourage me to focus on cutting taxes and listening to residents.
Exactly. I learned a lot at JMU.
What life experience led you to join or not join the political party you align with, and do you think it makes a difference for city government?
Just wanted to make sure I answered you properly, so I wanted to repeat the question. What life experience? I'm an African-American man. I deal with all types of people. I was raised in a house of love. I was raised in a house of tolerance, and I was raised in a house of acceptance. We were raised fiscally conservative, most certainly, and I was born and raised in Danville, Virginia, and so a lot of my morals are going to be extremely conservative. However, with this hodgepodge of things that make me up, that life experience, I have leaned towards the Democrat Party because I have found them to be more socially accepting and more liberal-minded when it comes to tolerance and dealing with individuals and people. You see, at the end of the day, our party affiliation has absolutely nothing to do with city council. In fact, it's your representation, and I believe that city council should reflect what Harrisonburg looks like, just as employment should look like Harrisonburg looks like. And so I associate with the Democrat Party.
That's a good question. Came of age, or finished high school in 1981, and that was the beginning or the middle of the Reagan years. And I've always identified myself as a fiscal conservative, but a social moderate. Sometimes the Republican Party leaves me. I've pretty much stayed the same. In regards to city council, in reality, party means nothing. We had an old city attorney, y'all may know him, Earl Thuma. Once you're elected, the first meeting, we go back in the room, it's a closed session, and he gives you a little talk. He says, gentlemen and ladies, here's the issue. There's 5 of you. You need to come up with the best solution for all the citizens in Harrisonburg. And for the last 8 years, we've tried to do that. Has it been 100% majority on every vote? No. But on those that aren't, we've agreed to disagree civilly.
We'd like to see if there's a question from the floor.
Hi, this is a question for Ted Berg. Never mind.
One of the other ground rules for questions is that every question will be asked in such a way that all candidates are able to reply. Somebody else have a question?
Hi, my name is Josh Humphreys, and I'm a junior at James Madison. I would just like to thank the sponsoring organizations, and I'd just like to say that we have some members of our student government here and other clubs on campus. But my question is, like I said, we have a number of students here, many of which representing various clubs and organizations and the leaders of our campus. And in the effort to be fulfilling the mission statement and vision statement of our university to be the national model for the engaged university, I simply ask the question, how can we help you? If you're elected, how can we help you fulfill the vision that you have for this city, and how can students be a part of that?
Awesome.
Yes, Alan.
Awesome. So it's really great that you're here today. At the last forum, we had a young student ask a similar question, or actually, sort of, was it you? So at the last forum, you talked about 600,000 community service hours that were being done by the JMU students, and I think that strikes on that curve. Students are here for 4 years. They have a chance to be impactful. They have a chance to learn. They have a chance to contribute. And JMU is an undergraduate institution heavily. There are so many opportunities to be involved in the community that you guys need to embrace. So I thank you. You already have a role. You guys are engaging in that role. I think that we should work to better engage students in community projects and community opportunities and community research elements. The parking studies are a great example. But I think that it's a two-way street. I think that we need to allow students to participate in democracy by facilitating your participation, frankly, and work on programs that benefit you, such as downtown park and so forth.
Thanks for that question. I think first of all, we have to realize that as the university grows, the city grows. So we're all growing together. And I love when JMU students, or any students for that matter, come to city council meetings. We've always had positive relationships with students of all of the universities in the area. Coming from the school division most recently, I know that students have worked in all of our schools. We've accepted student teachers, mentoring programs from JMU students, and I do welcome active involvement in city government. So I welcome you to engage in all the community outreach programs that we have, to participate in things that we have downtown, and to certainly come to those city council meetings. It's always great to have you there and to have the input. But again, as the city grows and the university grows, I think we should have a shared vision and mission together to grow this city into the great place it is for all of us.
Thank you for that question and for coming to both of these forums and also speaking at the city council meeting last night in the public forum. I know when I was a student attending city council meetings, I didn't see a whole lot of other students there. A central issue in my campaign is place-based education, which has to do with getting students out of the JMU bubble and empowering them to feel like part of the community here. Not just a JMU student, but a Harrisonburg resident. You are a central part of our economy here. You help our local businesses, and your tax revenue benefits everyone here in the city. And because of the crucial role that JMU plays here in Harrisonburg, I think it would be good to see a JMU student representative on many of the committees we have here in our city that make recommendations to council. So we see a more rounded viewpoint when council takes recommendations from staff.
Mr. Humphreys, it's good to see you. And all my other fellow Dukes that are out there. I graduated in 2000, and I love this place. So much so that I met my wife at homecoming, and so I never left. So we're here. We are a great community. We are a great community because James Madison is a big part of that community. Your question was, how can you help? Intent. I believe that we need to intentionally engage and intentionally have relationship on a civic level as well as a policy level. I think that we need to get in the trenches together, whether it's at a city council meeting, whether that's any of the community activist meetings, whether that's mentoring and tutoring and getting into the homes. And I believe that as you get into the homes, you're going to get closer to parents, and parents will then create a greater tolerance for students, and I think students will have a better appreciation for Harrisonburg. Let's go Dukes.
Josh, good question. You answered somewhat similar, or asked the question somewhat similarly at the last one. And I stated that I've seen an improvement in the last couple of years. And I hope we can build on the improvement of the engagement of the students into our city, as well as the city's engagement with the university. We're open, we're respectful of you, and the question is, let's get involved. We have activities, boards, ability, we have opportunity. And as I mentioned earlier, for people that don't know, we would not have a volunteer rescue squad if it was not for the hours by JMU students here in Harrisonburg. It's the only reason that we have the quality of service there that we do is because of the JMU student population.
Well, I want to thank you for coming out tonight, and of course, what you can do is part of what you're doing right now. And I also want to point out that we have a leader in the College Democrats here tonight. Glad to have you here. And a leader in Madison Liberty. Is there someone from the College Republicans? I didn't see you if you were here. Oh, Wes was here, okay. But, I mean, getting involved is important. You know, just looking at it from a political aspect, in 2012, when I was with the Harrisonburg Republican Party, I quipped, I said, you know, when I was 15, I was the youngest person here. And then in 2012, you know, many years later, I said, yeah, I'm still the youngest person here. You know, and I was, of course, in my 30s at that time. So, you know, and of course, it's not just political engagement, it's religious engagement, civic engagement. Come out to the city council meetings. You know, get involved in every facet of Harrisonburg life. I mean, because we want you here. You know, you're as much a part of the community as any of us. So please do get involved.
Okay, our next question is going to follow up, and it also concerns JMU. It appears at times that JMU and the city are acting independently of each other without any underlying strategic plan or joint vision to work together. How can the planning relationship between JMU and Harrisonburg be strengthened?
Again, to reiterate, I do think that open lines of communication between the city council, staff, and James Madison University are very important. So one of the things that I would do on city council is make sure that we work together on a shared vision for the growth of Harrisonburg City. How we can integrate students into the city effectively, how we can meet their needs, and how they can meet our needs as well. So again, just facilitating that open line of communication, sharing a vision is very important to a collaborative contact with James Madison University and all of our universities in the area. Thanks.
Our city obviously has a huge interest in engaging with JMU. And what we need to do is figure out a way for them to have a huge interest to work with us. As a state institution, JMU is not subject to our zoning laws or taxation, local taxation here, but the students are. They live and shop and go to bars here in Harrisonburg, and we need to engage directly with them and get them involved in our community So that's our link with JMU's administration.
And I think this goes directly back to the senators and the other JMU representatives that are in the building, and to the faculty and staff that's represented as well. I believe we can move Harrisonburg forward into a new direction that sees students, faculty, and staff as true neighbors, and not a nuisance, and not just a byproduct of a state institution. JMU is a major contributor to the city in regards to its culture, and obviously economically, and being the largest employer here. No longer will residents of our city feel pushed out, okay, by the traffic and population of our university, but seen as neighbors. Nor will students feel unaccepted, because I found that to be a great issue even when I was here, and feel unwelcome. I believe a renewed relationship between the city and the university will contribute to positive movement economically, culturally, socially. I think there's a lot that we can do here. We need to do an in-depth economic development, market analysis, quite honestly, to see what projects we can move forward with financially and socially.
It's a good question. I know I was sitting here doing the math. I believe 8 years ago, when I first came on, I suggested we needed a joint committee made up of 2 council members, city manager, and it was usually the president and chief financial officer of the university. And then we met quarterly, just to discuss some of these issues on the high level of what are you thinking, where are you going next, and they were asking us the same. A lot of it came to fruition, that groundwork, after the unfortunate riot event, where we then started sharing police. Since then, what we have done personally is appoint expertise from the university to our boards and commissions, and both EMU and JMU. So I have representatives on Housing Authority, Economic Development, Planning Commission, HDR, as well as other boards that were using their expertise.
On a slow week, I usually only spend about an hour at JMU speaking to students. Oftentimes I spend much more time on the campus. And I think the citizens need to be more involved. Recently JMU had a tripartisan debate, which they've had for years, which is fantastic. And yet, I was expecting to see some of the other city council candidates there, and they weren't. And my pledge to the students, is that I want to continue that dialogue. Now, unfortunately, of course, at this time, the Republicans and the Democrats have their candidates, and I may not want to hear from you right now. But after the election, if I'm elected, or even if I'm not, now I want to come back and speak with you all. See how you're doing, see what's of interest to you all, because I think that's important and something that, I don't know, the dialogue is a two-way street. We can't just expect a student to come out and to the community. We also have to go in there as well. And so I just want people to be mindful of that. Thank you.
I got my master's degree from James Madison University in public administration, but this question is not necessarily about the student body. I work daily with James Madison University on economic, social, and sustainability issues, but this is not just about working with JMU. This is about smart partnerships and collaboration. We have a university full of very smart folks. We have a second university at Eastern Mennonite University with a ton of additionally intelligent people that we should be partnering with. And we talk about the mix, the divergence between planning at the city level and planning at the JMU level and planning at the county level. A lot of times the plans are very similar. The goals are similar. The challenge is we're not reaching those goals because we're not working together closely enough. So I would say I think we had a great opportunity last week with the Bike and Pedestrian Summit. It was good to see some city council members there, and I was very proud to be there. Tuesday, the Commonwealth just announced its energy plan. Ken Newbold and myself helped write the thing, which is a representation of how the university can pair up together with the community and collaborate on a forward-thinking document. So let's pursue goals together.
Helen, this question is from an attendee. The school budget is a collaborative process with City Council. Do you believe the school budget is adequate? If not, what specific request would you support?
Like Dee Dee said earlier, our school budget is about 22% of the total city budget. That's a huge percent, and I think we should keep it right about there. In this economy, everyone is making sacrifices. The school kept their funding at the same level as the last fiscal year this year, with some rejiggering in the budget. The citizens saw a 6 cent on the $100 real estate tax increase and a personal property tax increase. While I don't support cutting the school budget for where it is right now, I also don't think we can expect citizens in this economy to donate more money or have their money donated for them to the school system in this coming fiscal year.
If we want to have the right future, if we want Harrisonburg to sustain itself, there's no better quote-unquote product, there's no better resource than our children. And I believe that, again, if we look at our budget, see what things can be tweaked, see what things could be shifted and moved, I strongly believe that allocating more resources, as I mentioned before, to pre-K, allocating more resources to after-school programs. I can't harp on this enough, because the more that you can invest in children on the off hours of school, and the more that we can invest in teachers and equipping them and giving them tools that are necessary to give children life skills, that's going to be the true investment. Yes, we want bikeable, walkable pathways. Yes, we want to be environmentally sustained. However, if there's no youth here, if we don't invest in them, they won't have a Harrisonburg. And so let's invest in them, let's make them more intelligent.
It's been my experience that the collaborative side of the school budget's on the capital side. By state code, the school board's responsible for sending over 7 budgeted fund categories, and we either say yes or no. So what I can tell you, in the last 8 years, I've been proud to fund 100% of the school board's request on the operational side of their budgets. Now, we are collaborating on the capital side of their budgets, trying to work a long-range plan that's fiscally responsible for our children as well as for our taxpayers here in the city.
Well, I am the son of a public school teacher in Rockingham County, and the only candidate who actually went through the Harrisonburg public school system. And so, this issue is particularly important to me. I remember, of course, a number of years ago, it came before council to sell the building we are in right now to James Madison University. And at the time, I argued against it. And the reason being was that when I was a student in 8th grade at Thomas Harrison, we had already run out of space there. And actually, my whole room was a trailer. I don't think that I call them trailers, but whatever they call them these days. And as such, it actually leaked when it rained. And so I said, we need more space for our students. This is vitally important. And I still think we still have these things, and we still need space for our students. So I would like to make sure that all students have a safe, warm environment to attend school in.
Both of my parents were teachers. My mom taught Head Start, and my dad was a college professor, and school is obviously important to me. Education systems are important to me. This is an investment. This is fiscal responsibility to be investing in our schools. I see it as Harrisonburg not being all in for our schools if we are preventing them on the capital side and working only on the operational side. We need to work together with our school system. We have unabated growth in the city. We have more students than we have places for them. Waterman still has those trailers that we talked about. That's a challenge. These are things that we can work for. Our schools are obviously efficient, effective, and innovative. We have a great school system, but investing in our schools is investment in our whole society. And there's ways we can get revenue. It doesn't just have to come from raising the property tax on people. Revenue can come from enhanced quality of life, enhanced economic opportunity, economic development, a whole range of things. It's not a simple equation. Pre-K, $1 becomes $3. After-school programs, workforce pipelines. I want to use economic development to get us there.
Having recently retired from Harrisonburg City Schools and having worked on that budget for many, many years, I know that City Council's role is to approve and to appropriate the funds for the operational budget based on the 7 functions that we present. I do know that Harrisonburg City Schools worked hard every single year to develop a budget that would be favorably approved by City Council based on the sources of revenue that we have. Is it enough? It's never enough. But many of those things that we have to fund in the city division budget are things that are mandated. The Virginia retirement system rate, which is mandated biannually by the legislature. So that's something we really didn't have a control over. But I think as City Council, we can work to help the city to identify, the school system to identify those revenue sources that are available and to make sure that the City Council is funding fully the school division budget as it is presented. We have a great school division. I'm proud to say that I come from there, and we'll continue to work with the school division to make sure that we meet the needs of all the students and staff.
All right, I'm going to be coming out to see if there's questions from the audience. We're taking another one. Oh, there's a lot now. We've all had time to think. Let me get to this gentleman right here. You had your hand up?
Sorry, this is a little bit of a long question.
Has to be 60 seconds around.
Okay. Not too long ago, if I'm not mistaken, a certain national cable provider, who shall remain nameless, but who provides cable and internet service to a large number of customers here in Harrisonburg, is rated the least liked company in America. I can't begin to share the stories of friends and colleagues who've had terrible customer experiences. There are municipalities across the United States and Canada that are starting to create their own cable and internet utilities with substantial success. Chattanooga, Tennessee, which is where my parents live, and stands out as a good example. With the great cultural focus we have here on the local in Harrisonburg and debate over the idea that internet access should be available to everyone, why not treat cable and or internet, more importantly internet, as a local utility like electric or water, or at least provide an alternative to foster competition for better prices and better service.
Chris, you can't ask me to repeat that. Just tell me right now.
I won't. I'll just say I don't like them either. I really don't. But my wife's there. She can verify that one. So yes, I do think we need more competition here. And quite honestly, I'm glad you asked this question because I was actually researching it. It wasn't in our packet here, but I do think that is something that we should look at as a utility, considering the amount of universities and colleges that we have here, considering how many people that go to school as professionals, right? So my wife being one of them. So the amount of people attending Blue Ridge or taking classes at JMU, it is a necessity at this point for survival. And I think that something like that will pull rate down, it will increase competition. I definitely would support, as the gentleman mentioned before, us collaborating and looking at ways and means to do that together and efficiently and effectively. I don't think that it's something that council, should jam down the city's throat, but I think that it's something that should be provided as an option. Because quite honestly, right now, the converse is happening. I kind of feel like that particular company that will not be named is kind of just pushing those options down our throat. And we definitely need to come up with some competition, and I definitely do see it as a utility and staple. I agree.
In regards to the cable, you're right, they do have a franchise agreement. You do have the ability to access through satellite on your house. In regards to internet, I had the same problem. I went to a different provider. We have those. And then last night, we just allowed for a franchise agreement to put dark fiber down Main Street to increase somewhat the competition on the internet ability here, as well as the other, help me with them, Intex. There's a term for these telecoms that provide cable. So there is some competition here. It depends who you want to sign up with because of the switching down at the Verizon top, lack of a better term.
I can certainly understand where you're coming from. I was actually renting a place at one point where having cable was part of the lease agreement, and I said, is there anything I can do about this? I don't care that much about watching TV, I'll just go watch the football games at BW3s and be done with it. But unfortunately, that wasn't available to me. But I really think, my understanding is that the best way to do this is to get the government out of it. I mean, the reason that these monopolies exist is because the government grants them to them. And so if we allow the free market to work, then we would see a whole plethora of internet and cable providers. And some will be great, some will be terrible. But that will leave us as consumers to make this choice to say, you suck, I'm going somewhere else, and to give us that ability. So, I think that's the solution to our problem. It's not more government, it's actually less government.
Great question, and you can't always walk away from your service provider. There are some people who are stuck, and that's the real challenge. When I was Assistant Secretary of Commerce and Trade, I cut the ribbon at a WiMAX facility in Lynchburg, Virginia, actually in Appomattox, where they were providing for 3 miles wireless service to all citizens. That was a community broadband project that was absolutely necessary because there was not only was there no competition, but there was nothing. There was no internet available to those citizens. Harrisonburg has a little bit different. The last time I did speed test at JMU, it was 20 megabytes a second. So the university has great access to the internet. We have good fiber resources. And I use a competing service to the main one that you're referencing. But community broadband is very important. Secretary of Technology, Karen Jackson, would be very interested in this. She's come up to collaborate with the Technology Council here in Harrisonburg, and that represents some opportunities for the city. I would say it should be a citizen project, and then municipal utilities are great investments. Harrisonburg Electric Commission and our water represent some of the best investments the city's ever made.
Harrisonburg City currently has a fiber optic ring around the city, and Harrisonburg City Schools was lucky to be able to take advantage of that. We have robust infrastructure already in place, and so I do think that competition would be healthy to be able to look at other ways to get infrastructure, to be able to get internet and other resources into our city in terms of utilities. We had that opportunity several years ago when Google came to town and was looking at us. So I think that we need to continue to broker those kinds of conversations with outside agencies to see what we can bring to Harrisonburg.
A number of candidates have touched on the central issue with this question, which is competition. And I would agree with some of the candidates that getting government out of the way so people have more choices is a better solution than more government contracts, but with a less objectionable company. I expect that over the next few years, we're going to see some real innovation in this area. And rather than investing in a technology that is changing and spending a lot of money on something that will probably look very different even within the next couple of years, I look forward to that innovation and make sure that as many people in Harrisonburg as possible have the choice to look for their own internet and cable providers and are not stuck with one bad option.
Next question that was prepared in advance, and Ted, you'll begin. After years of debate, a consensus has emerged in the scientific community on the topic of anthropogenic climate change. Human-induced climate change is occurring, and unless addressed soon, its consequences will be severe and widespread. Do you believe the city of Harrisonburg and its council have an obligation to address climate change? If so, how?
I believe we do. I think one of the central values from a value statement from the city is that we need to take care of our natural resources. And part of that is looking at opportunities to be more energy efficient. Also, looking at ways to encourage our citizens to be more energy efficient. There is a cost associated, and part of it is has there been, the way I would read the question is, has humans affected somewhat climate change? Yes, to answer that question. But we also have an ability to take steps to limit its impact, as well as maybe reverse.
I think the last time I saw this question was followed up with, well, should the city hire some new department head to make this happen? And of course my answer then was no, and still is no. And this is actually an issue that I've addressed quite a lot, actually. Until I started really getting involved in running for city council, did a monthly radio program with Andy Schmuckler on 550 WSVA, and once the election's over, I look forward to doing it again. But, you know, there's some interesting facets about climate change that most people don't talk about. I had a fantastic professor of geology while at William & Mary named Dr. Hancock, and he actually said to me, did you realize, well, he didn't just say to me, he said to the entire group, did you realize that actually if the temperature of the planet increased by 1 degree, the amount of arable land available for farming actually increased dramatically? It's like, well, no, I didn't. And so, you know, I don't really think this is much of an issue for City Council. I mean, you know, when it comes to cleaning up Black's Run, absolutely. Making, you know, cleaning up the trash in the city, you know, these are things that we must focus upon, certainly. But I really don't think this is an issue for City Council.
I run an environmental nonprofit that works every single day to reduce greenhouse gas emissions statewide, displacing climate change gases. I was involved in the state's Energy Council, writing new policies that are advancing and new recommendations to work at a statewide level for Virginia to be a leader once again. I staffed the Climate Change Commission that the Commonwealth ran initially in 2007. This is an important issue. This is an incredibly important issue to the citizens of Harrisonburg, folks that repeatedly raise this as a real issue, as an issue that they anticipate to challenge their grandchildren, to challenge their children, to challenge their beachfront properties that they may like to enjoy. The city has an obligation to lead. We have an obligation to listen to our citizens. And what's great is that the things that we can do to mitigate climate change are actually things that we can do to save taxpayer money. They're things that we can do to recirculate taxpayer resources in the economy so that we're bolstering and improving our quality of life, improving our economic opportunity, improving our positions. The public safety building here in Harrisonburg is a great example where we reduced the waste and we are going to save a ton of money as a result. We should consider alternatives for the city, much like James Madison University, EMU, and our neighbors are doing with solar and wind power. We can actually, instead of investing in Dominion giving money to somebody else in Indiana, we can have Dominion or the Harrisonburg Electric Commission put money here in Harrisonburg, build. We can solarize Harrisonburg, which is a community project, and I encourage everybody to check that out.
I'd like to you know, we all live downstream from someone, and so I do think that best practices are important for everyone here in Harrisonburg. So we can continue to improve those practices. You know, one of the things that we're doing right now is the conversion to liquid natural gas for our fleet here in Harrisonburg, and so we need to continue that. We need to continue looking at those things that are going to help our environment throughout the city of Harrisonburg. However, a lot of those things come with a cost. And so again, as stewards of not only the environment, but the money here in Harrisonburg, I think your city council it's incumbent upon them to make sure that choices are made and priorities are set to make sure that we are not only taking care of the environment, but also taking care of your tax dollars here in Harrisonburg.
I think this especially is an area in which the JMU community can have an enormous impact on our city. We have an enormous resource of students who are passionate and knowledgeable about this issue. And we can connect them with our city departments and find out what the most efficient ways to be good stewards of our environment are. No one community can help the environment on its own. We're part of a group. We need to look at what's working across the country, make sure our efforts don't adversely affect the people that we're trying to help. And one thing I want to touch on, particularly as we try to make our city buildings more energy efficient, is the need to have these projects fairly bidded out to different companies, both locally and across the state, and not have them pushed through really quickly just to get make more energy efficient buildings. I think there's a lot of companies, even locally, that would want those jobs and could do them very effectively for us.
The earth is a gift, and it's our responsibility to preserve it for the next generation, those people that come after us. And this is one area where I'm really proud that Alan and I partnered up in this election and hope that you vote for both of us. Yes, human-induced climate change is perpetuated by a lack of education to the general public, a failure to establish alternative habits, and most certainly a scarce leadership from public officials. We have to hire a sustainability coordinator in order to be accountable and responsible. We cannot just aimlessly create goals, right, or purposely create goals and a comprehensive plan, and then not have anyone to follow them up or be dedicated towards those goals. All right, it takes personal responsibility, but it also takes leadership. There's no other area that we want to find change in without having that type of leadership, without that type of figurehead, without someone to steer the ship. And this is an area that we needed in Harrisonburg. It's obviously something that's demanded by the people. It's obviously a change that we want to see done. And so this is a position that needs to be created, furthermore, to help us perpetuate the goal of Harrisonburg. Furthermore, the City Council, should lead the effort by assisting, encouraging, and providing support for citizens and local organizations that are already doing this. We have to find leadership on this. I'm sure there are 1 or 2 councilmen that are currently there that will lead on this goal. But however, I think we need to have a firm employee that can help to fulfill this. Thanks.
Our next question also comes from an attendee. What issues that impact our disabled community members do you see as an issue that you could help solve? Do I need to read it again? We'll give you 30 seconds on this one. Would you like to do that again?
Sure.
Sorry. What issues that impact our disabled community members do you see as issues that you could solve?
Well, that's a good question. I must confess, one I haven't heard yet. I think helping just to make the community aware of folks with disabilities and also our facilities that aren't currently accessible to folks with disabilities. Again, like I mentioned with the sidewalk issue, there are places where we need sidewalks where we don't have them. There are places where we have sidewalks where nobody uses them. So, we have to, the ability to access buildings, public buildings, just like any of us. I mean, yeah.
Disability is a very wide term, so it's going to be difficult to answer that question without kind of looking at specific individual items. But I would absolutely state that our sidewalks need some work. We systematically place telephone poles right in the middle of the sidewalk, which means that our disabled populations that are in wheelchairs ride down the middle of the street consistently in downtown Harrisonburg, a city that has wonderful bike and pedestrian accommodations, can't accommodate disabled friends. I think we need to continue to build friends in the community and to also work on workforce opportunities.
I think one of the things that we need to do to help our disabled citizens in Harrisonburg is to look at multimodal regional transportation facilities for them. I know that the disabled need to get to different places outside of the city of Harrisonburg, and so I do think it behooves us as a city to look at ways that we can help those individuals get to where they need to be in the outlying areas outside of Harrisonburg.
We have some amazing programs and individuals here in Harrisonburg that do a lot for the disabled community here. A couple weeks ago, I was privileged to attend the Valley Association for Independent Living Community Leaders Luncheon, and we learned about several disabled people in our community and what that organization does to help them. I think the city needs to partner with organizations like that, as we already do, to increase awareness of what the average citizen can do to help out in the community.
That was a great event. I want to make sure that we change the way that we speak and change the way that we think. We need to work on inclusion. It's not an us or them, right? It's family, right? We are one community. And so we should not have this great division. And so we should look for all opportunities of inclusion, and that's through employment, and that's socially, and that's also for convenience. Quite honestly, it was pretty heartbreaking knocking doors right across from VMRC, and there was no sidewalks. We got to make things available, give access.
In regards to mobility issue for the disabled population, I'm quite proud of Harrisonburg Transit. Currently, we provide door-to-door access with our paratransit fleet. In addition, you've noticed the amount of new sidewalks that have been redone for access, disability access, and every new construction project or road project where it includes sidewalks and paths are being built to federal, help me with it, disability standards.
We're going to end on time at 8:30. Now is the time when we will turn to our final question. Although we still have some great questions that didn't get asked, hopefully you'll be able to mingle afterwards and ask people individually. But our final statement, and everybody will have 60 seconds to answer this final question, is, how do you define quality of life? And what do you think the city should provide to offer the best quality of life to its citizens? I believe we're starting with Alan.
Quality of life is a great question, but it is a very subjective mix. We're talking about a whole range of things that are really individualized and subjective. It's about how happy we are as individuals, as a community. For me, I see it as neighborhoods, neighbors, the community, and connections between those, getting to the offices, employment, opportunities, and individual utility, so being sure that folks are fulfilled in their lives. Food, recreation, collaboration, and a government that provides useful services and the type of services that we need and we seek. A government that works for you is a government that improves your quality of life. I need your help to improve Harrisonburg's quality of life. I need your help to vote, volunteer, grab a yard sign on your way out, and put the election on your calendar and get out there and vote on November 4th. Bring a friend.
I'm fortunate to have enjoyed a wonderful quality of life in Harrisonburg for 50 years. And I define quality of life as being able to have all of those things that make my life fulfilling and those around me have a fulfilling life as well. We have a great park system. We have a great public transportation system. Heck, I'm even able to walk to work from where I live. And that's a wonderful feeling here in Harrisonburg. We have great restaurants. We have great infrastructure in place, except for those that shall remain nameless in many instances. And we have a great school system that offers many programs to students of all walks of life here in Harrisonburg. We celebrate the diversity and the culture of every single person that comes in Harrisonburg. We have respectful citizens, we have respectful public works offices, and we have ordinances and policies in place that we need to continue to look at to make sure that we maintain this wonderful quality of life. So again, I just want to say that a fulfilling quality of life for me is enjoying everything that Harrisonburg currently has to offer.
Like Alan said, quality of life is very subjective. And I don't think that it would be responsible of me as a candidate or for city council to tell people what you need to make your own life better. Instead, I think we should foster an environment where individuals can pursue their own goals, whether that's starting a business, buying a home, or even just graduating from JMU and moving out. This November, you're voting on the new jail. You're voting on the size and power of our local police force. You're going to vote on what kind of relationship JMU and the city have. And you're going to decide what you want our downtown and our streets and our neighborhoods to look like. These issues matter way more than any four-year term for a candidate here, and they are up to you. And I appreciate so much all of you coming out and becoming educated voters and knowing all the candidates. Don't forget to vote November 4th. Don't forget we have some new voter ID laws, so bring your ID, come prepared. And thank you again for your commitment to being educated voters.
Quality of life, exposure to rich cultural opportunities, and exposure to good, open relationships professionally and personally. That's quality of life to Chris Jones, right? The more rich and the more diverse it can be, the more people I can meet, the more people I can engage in on a professional and personal level, the better quality of life it is for me. Now, the reason why I want you to vote for me for City Council, I like to earn your vote. I'm here, I'm available. I'd also like to continuously earn that job when elected and always be available and accessible. I'd like to tear down some of the stigmas and stereotypes that come with City Council and bridge the gap between City Council and JMU, bridge the gap between those individuals that feel underserved and underrepresented. let's move Harrisonburg forward in a new direction. Let's add more diversity to Harrisonburg City Council, and let's make sure everyone is fully represented and fully thought of when making laws, when making government happen.
I took a shot at defining it. I have it as one's ability for life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, done in a societal setting that respects each other's individual and property rights that we as a nation have accorded to them. Have I tried to do that on City Council for the last 8 years? I've tried to make sure we've had an excellent educational system through funding Harrisonburg City Schools. Second, I've tried to make sure we've had a safe community, that people have felt safe in their homes and in their neighborhoods. And thirdly, I have invested in a robust municipal infrastructure so that we'll leave this city a little bit better for the next generation. And with that, I've tried to make a level playing field that you can make your own choices so you can reach your level of quality of life that you desire.
I'd say having a good quality of life here in Harrisonburg means that every morning when you wake up, you think, you know, I'm glad to be in Harrisonburg, I'd rather not be anywhere else. Now, I've had the opportunity through my employment to live in a number of cities, Virginia Beach, Charlottesville, Nashville, Greenville, South Carolina. But sooner or later, I come back to Harrisonburg because this is my home. Has been my home and will be my home. And so, you know, it's important to me to have a city council who's very mindful of your tax dollars and very mindful of your civil liberties. As you may see, I've got the little button on tonight. I got this back in 2012 when I worked for an organization here in the Shenandoah Valley. The folks in Greene County gave this to me just sort of to remember to always support liberty in everything that I do. And that's what I, as a city council member, what I strive to do. So I certainly would appreciate your vote on November 4th.
Let's thank our candidates for being willing to speak. Thank you very much. Also, thank you to Downtown Dining Alliance, North End Greenway, Shenandoah Valley Bicycle Coalition, Harrisonburg Rockingham Green Network, and Better Together for putting these forums together so that we can hear from the candidates specifically. Thank you all for coming. Please vote, and feel free to linger and have conversations. Thanks.
They're talking like it's done, and I just asked Eddie, and he said, what are you talking about? I said, you're talking about maybe next time.
So the analysts. Thank you for coming out. Well, interesting there weren't, we had sort of the cheering segment. We didn't really have it. Which, I don't know if it's good or bad. I actually felt, I didn't, actually, in retrospect, I didn't really like it. See, I think it'd be interesting
Yeah, she said about didn't wear the figure out. They're on the
I did see well, I mean, I couldn't see Republicans last time. And of course, apparently the leader of the Jamie College Republicans is
You can't park cars. You can't park cars. That's what the issue is. So I don't know what to do.
It's always good to speak to the public.
That's exactly right. Parking deck and municipal parking deck. 25 minutes. You need to increase that parking That's
do there?